As people who love the outdoors, we know what we stand for. We stand for fish, wildlife, and conserving places they call home. We stand for the traditions we inherited and that we must pass on. We stand for great gear, fair prices, expert service, and memorable experiences. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, we stand together for you.
Time for an oil change? Head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. We've also got you covered when it comes to oil changes, thanks to Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube. Leave worry behind.
Miami went to Atlanta to play a baseball game, but the story is all about the brawl after a first pitch controversy. I love it. They just got
a brouhaha.
Yeah, things got heated.
Donnybrook.
And down in Atlanta, and I'm learning all sorts of new terms for it. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike. And this is what it comes down to. We're getting ready for the show this morning, Mike, and we're talking about the game last night and a massive story out of the first pitch that caused a rumble. And you have now started teaching me all of these. They feel like old man words, which is funny that you are teaching me old man words for a fight.
Well, they're old man words that surround sports fighting culture and fighting culture in general, but a lot of them in that area. And I figure as much as, maybe the movies might try and portray it, if they do, I actually, as I say this now, I'm not sure that there's a movie that portrays a lot of band fighting, but I can't imagine there was a lot of fisticuffs or Donnybrooks going on in the yard at Juilliard.
Fisticuffs and Donnybrooks. This is spectacular. Hey, you know what? I will tell you this. Backstage at country shows can get a little heated.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Like Jack Daniels and people, things do get a little heated. Did you ever get in a training camp fight?
God, it's what you do to basically take a break most of the time. Like veteran guys will time training camp fights really well so that they'll cut a period short. Like if you're doing a period of one-on-ones together and it's in the middle of training camp and everyone's really tired, one of the vets will usually kind of take it on themselves because there's two different levels. There's the rookies and the guys trying to make the roster fighting like me, where you're doing that to show up. Like you want them to see, oh yeah, he's got some dog in him. Like they'll turn on the tape later and they'll say that about you. The vets want them to cut the period short when they fight.
I'm curious because like when you play basketball on the road with a bunch of musicians, there's what they call artist rules. Like certain guys on the tour, you're not going to tee up as hard on. I don't care what anybody says.
So it's like the anti-Jordan rules.
No, yeah, the guy that's really like if his face is on the side of a semi, you're not going hard at him. So when you're the guy trying to make a roster spot and one of the big guns comes at you, do you just have to take your whooping?
Well, so that happened to me in Pittsburgh. It was in OTAs, and it was a James Foote. I forget his first name, but he was a longtime linebacker there, and it was in the middle of OTAs, and the way the reps counted out, the third stringers would always end up going against the first string defense. And so it was a run play, and we're in OTAs, so we're in helmets, anything like that, but you still end up getting going pretty hard. And I locked him up, and he did not like it. Next thing I knew, I had his hand up underneath my chin and everybody on defense surrounding me, because that was apparently a tempo violation, which is something you learn pretty quick, but that's what you gotta do, stick out, man, which obviously it worked really well, because they cut me later in September.
Well, yeah, well, let's get to a little bit as we see this fight starts the conversation because of some of last night's What's Trending. Atlanta Braves rookie Ronald Acuna Jr., who had homered in 5 straight games, the last 3 against the Marlins, was hit by the first pitch thrown by Miami starter Jose Urena, and this is what it sounded like.
The wind by Urena, first pitch, hit him. Drilled him in the left elbow. Acuna, he's in a lot of pain. And now he'll turn and walk back into foul territory toward the Marlins dugout. And the Braves are coming out onto the field, and the Marlins are coming out onto the field. Brian Snitker's right in the middle of it.
680 The Fan on the call, and as you heard, it finally led to a brawl. Urena and Braves manager Brian Snitker both ejected from the game, Mike.
Yeah, Urena becomes just the 4th pitcher in the live ball era to be ejected, hitting the only batter he faced last night. It was one and done for him to start this game. Obviously, Acuna had been coming in 3 straight leadoff homers going into this, was hot. I think 2 or 3 of them had come against the Marlins, so very clearly battling back against the guy that had just been beating them around the yard. And the reactions to the fight are always almost as interesting as the fight itself. But Acuna got hit in the elbow. Like, anyone who's gotten hit with anything before can tell you that's a spot you'd like to avoid, because for them, especially as they look at the streak that this kid's been on, that's a spot that could cause some serious injury. I mean, so that's the very serious part of this you worry about. The fight reactions are always fun.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, no shock to anybody. I get hit in the elbow and I go full Peter Griffin for like half an hour just moaning in pain. So I can't imagine an actual baseball.
Hard to fiddle with a bum elbow.
Well, that is very true. See, look at you finding a reason of positivity for me. Wilson Ramos became an instant favorite with this new team. He had 3 extra base hits and 3 RBIs, helped the Phillies beat the Red Sox 7-4 in his first game, wearing red pinstripes.
Yeah, so he had been acquired July 31st, but had missed the better part of a month with the strained hamstring. So this becomes his second career triple and his first in 7 years in this instance. Getting there. Big man, I mean, coming off a hamstring too, took a while to get going. A lot of inertia there trying to hump it around the bases. But for the Phillies, they're 2 games back of the Braves in the NL East. Percentage points lead over the Brewers for first in the wild card. So this could be well-timed production if this becomes consistent.
I think that's the biggest thing. When you talk about the production, you're looking at it from the Philly standpoint. And let's remember, they're in the thick of having an opportunity to do something pretty special. So getting that kind of production right out of the gate, he actually commented later that he's going to remember it much like he remembered his first game in Major League Baseball. I think it's interesting. You think about what it's like to be traded and find yourself in this situation and now have that kind of a first night. I mean, it's a special moment, and momentum matters right now. Late in a marathon baseball season, the more baseball minds I talk to, the more I get the sense that it matters that you get sort of that reset and you get that opportunity to recharge a team. That can happen from an acquisition having a start like that.
And this one on a delayed reaction, we always see, regardless of the sport, how much health matters this time of year. And if they can keep him healthy down the stretch, the Yankees are seeing the opposite of that right now as we get some news about Aaron Judge and an update on that wrist injury that doesn't look like it's ready to come back. So all of these things that you have to manage over the course of a long season.
I am so stoked for the way this playoff race is going to end, as we talk about it every day. Every time we're hanging out, we talk about the fact that the playoff race in both the AL and the NL looks so tight, so compelling. It's fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, the Mariners and A's were tied 0-0 into the 12th inning before D. Gordon hit a 2-run home run, only his second home run of the season. Seattle holds on for the win to avoid a 3-game sweep.
Yeah, this is sort of the one people want to talk about baseball being long and boring. This is the 7th Major League Baseball game this season to go scoreless through 11 innings. So a little bit long, not a ton of run
pitcher's
production
duel, man.
there.
Pitcher's duel.
Yeah, exactly. But the Mariners now 2.5 games, within 2.5 games of the A's for the AL wildcard spot. So you talk about, especially on that side, we know the AL East has been an absolute bloodbath out there with the teams involved in that division. And that's what you've got to basically keep pace with at this point. Seattle, I think a lot of talk earlier in the season and just trying to round into form down the stretch.
Yeah, and Seattle, I think, is going to look back on this little moment right now with Aaron Judge having been out from the Yankees and wonder if they maximized, right? So there's a point where every game matters so much for Seattle. Every game matters so much for the A's. They're trying to find a way to make the playoffs and maybe keep New York home, which looks harder and harder to do if you can't pick up the ground while Aaron Judge is not in.
It's a good point because we spent so much time thinking about the Yankees trying to make up ground on Boston. Not, while Judge was out, but for Boston, while Sale was on the DL with that shoulder soreness. And we saw how well that went for the Yankees, and we just sort of looked away. But out west, no one's sleeping.
Well, I'm not sleeping on this tonight. Week 2 of the NFL preseason begins tonight with the rematch of the Super Bowl as the Patriots host the Eagles at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
We got a handshake gate going on right now. I mean, seriously, this is peak preseason headline material right here. Well, Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand after the Super Bowl. I can't imagine, as someone who is on the losing end of a championship game, there's anything you give a damn about less as the winner than who shakes your hand from the other team after the game. Like, give me the trophy. I want to kiss the Lombardi. That's all I want to do.
I mean, that is a level of petty. If you're walking away from the Super Bowl, you're sitting in the locker room, you're drinking champagne, you got the trophy, everybody's celebrating, and then you sit there and you're like, wait a minute. That guy did not shake my hand. I mean, that is the level of hate. I think we can all agree that the Eagles have made the switch and moved on. Tonight, we all make the switch. Make the switch brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics. Taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app. The Redskins will host the Jets. That's obviously going to have a ton of eyeballs, as everything the Jets do right now is about quarterback play. And I do have to say, for all of the conversation about Sam Darnold and is he going to be the week 1 starter, all we can take out of the first week was that they protected their quarterbacks in such a way that it makes you, it showed you they want to get Bridgewater a ton of time and they want to take a look at Sam Darnold. That's going to be the interesting piece for how they decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, to me, the most impressive part has been the things we've heard coming out from behind the scenes with him. His preparation, how he's been able to digest their playbook so far, his mental aptitude, because the physical tools have always been there. I mean, going back to 2016 when he took over 3 weeks into SC season, we saw that pop. We knew that was going to be there. But my worry always was he's also a guy that came to starting football later in that process. Wasn't the week 1 starter going into that year. Started the rest of the season, started 2017, and then it's, all right, everything is supposed to be yours. You're supposed to be this next guy. Can he handle that not having been? Because, you think about Josh Rosen and a lot of these guys, they come into these situations and they're the go-to guy right away. It's expected of them from the first time they step on campus on. Wasn't necessarily the case with Darnold.
What surprised me about the first preseason game for the Jets was that, frankly, they had McCown in for 1 series and then just put him away. So they're keeping him in a glass box. I realize they know what they have there, but there is some element of they're protecting McCown while they see everything else that they have. But to that extent, if you want to see Darnold start, he's got to make meteoric leaps every single week. He's got to outplay everybody every single week. So I think that's a big part of why we're going to see that happen playing time-wise.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to the preseason games at the end, especially for a guy like Darnold, it really is just like a quiz at the end of the week because all the stuff you want to see is in practice. That's where you're seeing a bulk of all this come to life. And then you get to the game and, yeah, you make him put it on display there. I mean, before every game week, you take a quiz. Your position coach would usually give you a packet. You got to go through, take the quiz, hand it in, all that stuff. That's all this really is checking off the boxes at the end of the week for a guy that you already believe you know a fair amount about. You already thought you knew enough to draft this high when you got him and really got a steal at the 3rd overall pick. Every week, you're just trying to check off a little bit more. So you say, all right, he digested what we gave him this week. Now we can even up the ante more in hopes to getting him ready for a full game-level playbook in the regular season.
I cannot wait to watch the Giants and Jets continue to play out throughout the course of the year to see how these top draft picks do. It's going to be one of the best parts of the NFL season. Next, get you caught up on what's trending. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance, with more than 30 unique coverage options available. Progressive knows small business. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike. And obviously the big story last night, Acuna Jr., Ronald Acuna Jr. was hit on the first pitch. And we talked a little bit about it earlier, but I want to go back to it, Mike, because I find it maddening. It's insane to me that baseball allows any sort of a world where it's accepted culture to hit somebody because they're on a hot streak. And I know baseball guys going to just destroy my timeline at this point. And I don't care, because what other sport do you look at it and say, you know what? I don't want to play that guy. I don't want to face him. So I'm just going to go out, find a way, cheat, and hurt him.
I think every sport's got a little more of an element than we probably think about. I mean, certainly everyone's going to associate 90s basketball with that. I mean, this is straight out of the Jordan rules. Right. If you've got a guy that great, just go and hammer time him. And I mean, NFL, that happens on every play. Like, the NFL is happening on every play. You're trying to legally hurt someone on every play.
But you're doing it legally. I mean, it's within the scope of the rules, right?
Well, and I guess baseball, I mean, this obviously isn't within the scope of the rules because guys were thrown out, but within their packet, the catalog of unwritten rules, this starts to find its way more and more. Like we always know. What's interesting is that point, I guess, culturally, because we're trying to legislate a lot of the violence out of almost every sport at this point, right? The NBA has gone to a much more open, free-flowing style of their game. The NFL, we see the measures that they've taken. Hockey's taken fighting out of it, and yet baseball still has this archaic element of its sport firmly lodged in the modern-day game.
Could you imagine, though, in the NFL, because we just want to lump on anything the NFL does as some sort of negative, right? Could you imagine the reaction in the NFL if you didn't want to play Aaron Rodgers, and so you just sent somebody in? You're like, all right, first play of the game, go off sides before the play starts, pick him up, throw him down. Let's just get him out of the game. Just to send a message because he's on a hot streak. That's essentially what they're doing.
Oh, I mean, listen, back in the day when like my dad and those guys were playing in the 80s and the 90s, you were going in there and intentionally trying to land on a quarterback and land on his shoulder and end his day early. And that's kind of what the cash equivalent of is here is you've got a guy you don't want on the field. You obviously not going to go low on him or do something like that, but a lot of guys would toy with that line. Now, we see most guys now understand that there's so much money at stake for all these guys that that's something you'd probably want to shy away from a little bit more because of what a meal ticket it is now. But there is still always that mentality carried. It's just been worked out of most other sports.
Well, and you mentioned how that was the mentality in the NFL in the 80s and when your dad played, and I totally understand that. It was a different world in sports in general. The 90s NBA world was a different world in sports in general. I think that we're at a spot now where you have to look at it and say, have we evolved? And shouldn't baseball at some point evolve past this? I mean, he hit the guy in the elbow. And I'm not, obviously people will come back and say, well, it's not like they hit him in the head. You still hit him somewhere that could hurt his career. I don't understand this mindset of, I don't want to take you on as a competitor. So instead, I'm just going to try and injure you so you miss some of the game. I can't wrap my head around it. Brian Snicker, the Braves manager, talked about it after the game.
He's a young, talented kid that's a shame that happened, because what happens if they hit him there and he breaks his elbow and he's done for the year? And what we're trying to accomplish here, and there's no reason for that. I mean, heck, this is a game. I mean, my God, that was just like I say. I had 3 hours to calm down. Now I'm getting worked up again.
Good God, man.
Yeah, but I get what he's saying. I mean, and part of what he referenced there at the end, too, is, look at what they're trying to do there, particularly. When you think about the year that Atlanta's having right now, they're 2 games up on the Phillies. They're trying to accomplish something. They've got a guy that's hot, and your solution, instead of out-competing him, is just throw the ball at him? I mean, and I understand that they ejected Urena for doing it. I understand that they ejected him. To me, that's just not enough. I mean, fine, you sit him down for the game, great. But you threw at somebody and you're trying to hurt him. I don't understand how just ejecting him for this moment. I mean, I'd sit him down for as long as possible to send a message.
Well, and I guess that's the point, though, is we've been floating that as a potential solution out of this for Major League Baseball for years now. And it's not in there, which means that Major League Baseball doesn't have a problem with this, right? Like that's what you can take away is in every other sport we've talked about, there are things when you want to legislate things out, you make it a point, you put some new rule in there, and then you go forward with it. For them, this is not deemed difficult enough or bad enough for them to legislate some sort of rule to get this away, because I look at it from Major League Baseball's perspective, because within the game and strategy and all this, if you're the Marlins, yes, it does benefit you not to have that guy on the field going and just working you at the top of the order like he had been lately. If you're Major League Baseball, we talked to Rob Manfred at the All-Star break about marketing young stars and all these things they want to do with the game. Like, this is one of your young stars. This is a guy you want on the diamond right now. And based on the streak that he had been on, I mean, the month of August leads the National League in OPS, home runs, and runs scored for the month. Like, this is as hot a name as baseball has. He's a young name in baseball, and taking him off the field, if this had somehow sidelined him for any amount of time, that to me is devastating for the lifeblood of your future.
Absolutely. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN2. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike. And the baseball guy often comes in and says the piece that you can't legislate is intent. So what? He threw a ball at him, and the ball happened to go to the spot where it hit him, and it was an accident by all accounts. You and I both work a lot in college football. You play college football. One of the things we've learned is that targeting, it doesn't matter what the intent is, right? If you take the wrong angle, you lead with your helmet, and suddenly you hit a guy, whether it was intentional or not, whether you were slipping when it happened or not, they'll kick you out of the game. They will force you out of the game. There will be punishment, because at some point you have to put safety ahead of intent. And one bad apple, we all learned this in preschool, right? One bad apple can ruin it for everybody. There's a spot here where Major League Baseball has to look at the what ifs. I mean, if I'm playing against the Yankees in the World Series, why not just plunk Stanton and plunk Judge? Start the series that way. All right, you got 2 guys that we don't want to face. I'll just throw at you. And that's essentially what they're doing last night.
More or less, and you're right in the fact that while targeting and a lot of those rules we may push back at, we may agree with some of the ways that it's implemented or enforced, the bottom line is there's a clear directive. This is what we do not want, and we have taken the steps to say we're not going to tolerate it anymore. Until we see some sort of action taken from Major League Baseball, we assume that this is tolerated and accepted behavior.
Well, it's tolerated and accepted because so many people have dealt with it for so many years. Keith Hernandez, the Mets TV analyst, this is what he said about the play afterwards.
Killing you, you've lost 3 games. Right. He's hit 3 home runs. You got to hit him. I'm sorry. I mean, people are not going to like that. But, you got to hit him, knock him down. At least, I mean, seriously knock him down if you don't hit him. And you never throw at anybody's head. You never throw at anybody's head or neck. You hit him in the back. You hit him in the fanny.
I mean, you got to hit him. You got to seriously knock him down. You never hit him in the back. You never hit him in the neck or the head, he says, and that's Keith Hernandez, the Mets TV analyst. But again, the other argument people make is, well, sometimes you just lose control. So is it that you're controlling so much that you know exactly where you're going to hit him, or did you lose control? You can't have the argument both ways.
I do love that, the wild swings between, well, we're so accurate I can hit him right in the fanny or right in the small of the back here or this spot, but sometimes it just gets away from me. Like, guys, a little bit too much buttered popcorn before the game. I popped open a yogurt, and all of a sudden things have just gone to hell.
I mean, this is disgusting and irresponsible. At some point you look at it and say, you want to beat somebody, beat somebody. Don't hit them. You want to beat somebody, go out and be the better competitor. Going out and hitting somebody is just a glorified version of cheating because you can't find a way to win with the talent that you have. I will not support this for baseball in any way, shape, or form. It's gross that we're sitting here talking about these, kerfuffles or...
kerfuffle is actually that, yeah, that one.
I
feel like Steve Harvey. I'm looking over the board. Yeah, we're going to count that one. We're going to give it to him.
Oh, man. Let's go look at Wingo. We'll keep breaking it down over the course of the morning. But coming up, there are starting quarterbacks in the league that are trash, overrated, decent, and at best, and all schemes, at least according to one All-Pro. We'll get to that.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN2. Jalen Ramsey has everybody fired up. We'll get to that in just a second. Do want to continue a little bit here, mostly because Twitter guys coming at me saying I'm soft for not liking the baseball, the unwritten rules of baseball. Well, Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports, one of our favorites, wrote this. Jose Urena was too much of a coward to challenge Ronald Acuna Jr. on Wednesday night, so instead he hit him with the 97-mile-per-hour fastball. Isn't it time we started calling pitchers who do what Urena did, bury a baseball into a hitter because the hitter had the audacity to be great? Exactly what they are. Coward works. So does chicken or yellow. Anything to stigmatize the stupidity of this act, which is so old, so tired, so beyond stupid, and so contrary to the objective of the game. Be better than your opponent. God, I love it when smart people agree with me, Mike.
Yeah, man, feels good, right? Coward, let's call him names. Let's respond to his childish act by calling him names.
I'm
bury
puffed
him.
up. You know what?
Bury him.
Here's the thing. You don't understand, Mike. You grew up big enough to fight your own fights in bars. I grew up big enough to talk a bunch of junk in bars. That's really my skill. This speaks to my people, all right? Like when
you grew up in bars?
Well, I grew up in Vegas. No, I did tour in country music for a long time. There's a fair point. I've had guys bigger than you need to bail me out of a lot of rough situations in bars. So I appreciate name calling. I think it has a real place.
I just enjoy I just do.
Nothing on that.
No comment.
All right, now it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And Jalen Ramsey decided to give his Straight Talk in comments in GQ. And this is sort of the article that has everybody shook, as the kids say, this morning as he decided to analyze quarterbacks. And we're in a world, let's be honest here, where a Madden rating becomes a topic. Oh, this quarterback didn't get a high enough Madden. Like every fan base gets fired up about the Madden ratings.
Player too.
100%. So imagine the shock and awe from fan bases across the NFL when Jalen Ramsey decides to group quarterbacks in different categories, such as Derek Carr, who he says, I think he's good.
That one made you happy. I feel like everyone fans like, please don't say anything bad about our quarterback. I want to feel good about this.
I think he's good, as opposed to Aaron Rodgers, who, quote, does not suck. That's really as far as Jalen got with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron, this is like an interesting, this is my favorite reference, interesting Rorschach test, because everyone looked at this and I think got triggered by a different quarterback synopsis by Jalen Ramsey. But the one thing that I did enjoy was that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady were kind of off to the side. Like, those guys don't suck. Like, when just asked about that, no, we're going to put that off to the side. He would not make that mistake.
Yeah, I think, you got to look at some of the quarterbacks he went after. Nick Foles, good enough, had a good team. Tom Brady, as you said, does not suck. Russell Wilson, good. So some of these are pretty, hey, even Marcus Mariota, great for their team. I don't, he's careful there with somebody they're going to play twice. Great for their team. Deshaun Watson, he'll be league MVP in a couple of years. Again, guys, he's going to be playing against, a little careful. Andrew Luck, don't really think he's that good. So he's not worried about that one. Roethlisberger shocked me. Decent at best.
So I thought it was interesting that the ones people were more shocked by that one, and people were more shocked by the Eli Manning one than him looking at Andrew Luck and saying he thinks T.Y. Hilton and that connection has made Andrew Luck. Like, that one to me is getting underplayed throughout all this, but because he called Josh Allen trash and because he said Joe Flacco sucks, we kind of tend to focus on those ones a little more.
Well, that is true. And we also, it's been so long since we've seen Andrew Luck. I think there are still people that are like, oh yeah, he's going to play this year. So Andrew Luck isn't quite the hotbed that he was. Now, this all raises a question as we look at the specifics of who Jalen spoke about in GQ about why. There's a point I said, think about how cautious he was with Deshaun and Marcus, two teams that look to be good in the South that they're going to play against. A little cautious there. But there has to be some motivation, right, to a guy going in for no reason and just deciding he's going to trash half the quarterbacks in the league. Louis Riddick talked about it on ESPN on NFL Insiders yesterday.
You have a guy who right now knows that he is at the very top of his game. He feels as though he can shut down anyone as far as wide receivers are concerned in the NFL. And you're going to have to do a whole lot in order to make his list of guys who don't suck and guys who are more than decent. And that can't be up and down performances. That can't be coming out of college and having put together subpar performances against inferior competition. You're going to have to earn it with Jalen. Jalen feels as though he's earned it from the league so far. I love it.
This is the interesting part, is Jalen's mindset here is not uncommon. Like, if you're to talk to most guys in NFL locker rooms, and especially most guys that have to play positions like defensive back, where this sort of mentality is just like a base level requirement in order to go out there and be good, let alone be as great as Jalen Ramsey is, you're not going to find a lot of compliments dished out to one another. Like, most guys are going to temper their praise of any guy that they're going to play against, let alone some of the names league-wide that become the big names that we always mention, because that's another sticking point, is a lot of these guys look at some guys who are paid big dollars and who get a lot of this attention that they don't deem worthy of that. And that's something that's much more common than just Jalen Ramsey. He's just the one that happens to get to go out and actually get the press for it.
I think it's interesting you mentioned the dollars, because Dan Graziano talked about that, another ESPN NFL insider, talked about the mindset of what creates this concept of overrated, underrated.
When a professional athlete says another professional athlete is overrated, he means he's overpaid. And that's how they rate each other, right? So Matt Ryan makes the most money of any quarterback in the league. He's not the best one. Ergo, overrated. Because look, 2 years ago, he won the MVP and was not overrated. He should have won MVP. He had that kind of year. Had you given him MVP last year, you would have been overrating him. When an athlete looks at another athlete, that's the scale they use. This guy shouldn't be making more money than Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and all these guys. He's not as good as they are. That's what overrated means.
And that's yesterday on the Will Kane show for Dan. And it speaks to what you're talking about. The overrated, underrated, there's a couple of spectrums that players are looking at. One is who they've faced and how they played against certain guys. That's obviously going to be part of whatever forms their opinion. The other piece of it is the one thing every single player knows about every single player, and that's what they're getting paid. I mean, there is a piece of that where you know that Jimmy G just got a massive contract. So when you're talking about overrated, underrated, you're not just thinking about Jimmy G, you're thinking about Jimmy G, the massive contract player.
Well, you are, but also you're thinking about, too, the context of their situations. A lot of what Jalen Ramsey talked about with guys was looking at their coaching situations. For guys on defense especially, and just in general, they're cognizant of, all right, how are you guys scheming us up? Are you a guy that's just going back there? We hear this criticism all the time for the Green Bay Packers and what they've done around Aaron Rodgers, which it's not a scheme that's going to get guys open. It's Aaron Rodgers just throwing guys open with that. We know that's not the MO with guys like Kyle Shanahan, who have done a great job with Sean McVay and that Rams offense last year. He's not going to ask his quarterback to do as much of that. They're going to get guys open more. And much like we've seen, Tom Brady penalized for being next to Bill Belichick. Like, this is just what people do. They're looking for ways to steal credit from guys.
It's Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And that was Jalen Ramsey giving us all the Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, you heard our Louis Riddick say that he loved Ramsey's comments. Well, another one of our analysts is having none of it.
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And it's easier than ever with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word JOLT to 797979. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text JOLT to 797979. Text JOLT to 797979.
Thank you so much, Twitter guy, for reminding us that there are actually islands in Ohio.
Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, there aren't any islands in America outside of Hawaii.
I got you saying that in my ear. I got Brett yelling Catalina wine mixer in my ear.
It's the Catalina wine mixer.
Yes, Catalina, technically an island.
Not technically an island, it's an island.
How can you technically be an island?
Rhode Island's not even an island, so get out of here.
Fact. Big fact.
Big boy talk. Either way, there's no islands in Ohio.
Rhode Island has island in the name, but it's not technically an island. That's why I'm using the word technically with the air quotes. I think the technically is deserved. And if you're connected by a bridge, you're not technically an island. Get out of here with that nonsense. SportsCenter brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. When a player doesn't like a contract, they hold out, right? With Straight Talk Wireless, you never have to because there is no contract. They use the same exact 4G LTE towers as the big carriers, but for a lot less. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart. Refer to terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Jason Fitz and Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike. And, you know, Island Gate had us very angry. Jalen Ramsey's comments yesterday had Michael Wilbon fired up. He was on PTI with Frank Isola yesterday and did not appreciate the commentary. This is epic. You got to hear Wilbon go off.
As if a third-year player as unaccomplished as Jalen Ramsey has any business going after other players like this so publicly.
Well, he has been an All-Pro. He's considered one of the better corners in the league.
How many times has he been an All-Pro? Once.
But guess what? They made the AFC Championship game. He plays for a pretty nondescript team in kind of a small market. And we've seen this before with cornerbacks, where they feel, you know what, the only way I can draw attention to myself a lot of times is by running my mouth, because if I'm really good, the quarterback's not going to throw my way anyway, so I'm not going to get a chance to get a lot of interceptions and make a lot of plays. Richard Sherman talks a lot. Deion Sanders talked a lot. Josh Norman talked a lot. They talk a lot.
Richard Sherman. And you know what? I got some guys.
Yet.
I mean, Darrelle Revis, Josh Norman, who I think was in the Super Bowl, Nnamdi Asomugha, who was a terrific player. It's like every year somebody's pronounced a great player at that position, and 2 years later they're being cut and in a revolving door trying to stay in the league.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey has done nothing. One-time All-Pro doesn't make you jack. He
Only
hasn't been in
3
the
years.
Super Bowl. He's done nothing. He's not Deion. Deion played 2 sports when he was a young guy, a first, second-year player. He was playing 2 professional sports. He can't be mentioned in the same paragraph as Deion.
They set the standard. That's what he's following.
But here's the thing. You better back this up. Mr. Ramsey, you better back this up. You better play this year. No off year. Then you better lead that Jaguars defense again, or you put yourself up for some real tough public scrutiny.
Well, yeah, no duh, Mike. Like, You think this kid sounds very afraid of going out there and having to back up his performance? Like, he was doing this in real time during games last year. He was actively chirping receivers he was going up against every step of the way. I do enjoy the resume bashing. Like, I half expected Wilbon to pull out, Jordan was perfect in the finals. What is this kid? Nothing.
Let's also remember, it's pretty, like, if I'm Jalen Ramsey, I'm part of a defense that last year was the best in the NFL, and this year returns the entire defense. Essentially, I'm looking at it saying, I feel pretty good about my opportunity to go in and, barring injury, play at an incredibly high level. I mean, there's not a spot here where the Jags think that they were a one-year wonder defensively on that side of the ball. So, Jalen Ramsey, if it's about having swagger, and boy, you better back it up this year, there's no reason to think he won't back it up. In fact, you have NFL research stats that show some of where Ramsey's come from on this.
Yeah, so the NFL research Twitter account tweeted out a list, Jalen Ramsey in coverage versus the quarterbacks that he mentioned in the GQ article. This is their career, including playoffs. And so it had the collection of the quarterbacks he mentioned positively, which include Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Mariota, and Nick Foles. In total, they had 3 touchdowns against him, 1 interception, and an 87.2 passer rating. Now, for the guys Jalen Ramsey and covered against that he mentioned negatively in the GQ article, Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Joe Flacco. 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions, a 69 passer rating. So, you look at that and you say, all right, like, statistically, he's not off in his description. Like, the guys that he deems quality have had more luck against him than the guys that he deems trash or that suck.
Stats Incredible, brought to you by OnStar. Advisors are ready to help when the unexpected happens. OnStar, be safe out there. And it is funny because that comes back to what I said earlier. It's all about the perspective of who he's seen and how he's played against, right? Or who he's played against and how they've played against him. I mean, there is some level of the stats bear to what he's saying when they've played against the Jags defense.
Well, and, you know, it's him playing against them. It's these guys also, and this is the part you're always jealous of, they get to spend every week focusing on the quarterback that they're about to face. So he has seen these quarterbacks in ways that most of the rest of us have not. Like, this guy does have a lot of firsthand experience. Now, it's colored by his own otherworldly confidence in himself. It's colored by the personal experience that he has. You're absolutely right. So obviously, you've got to account for some of that, but this is going to come down to, there are just going to be people that are understanding of and appreciative of a guy who's confident in his abilities and willing to speak his mind, and there's always going to be that crowd of people that would just rather everyone hand the ball to the ref after something good happens.
Well, and ultimately, I have to wonder what exactly not you, but people in general need to see from Jalen Ramsey before they'll accept his opinion. That's one of the weird pieces of this. And frankly, if he had come out about every single quarterback and said, you know what, these guys are all great. Love him. He's fantastic. This one's amazing. This guy's great. Wouldn't want to play against that one. If he'd given us every cliche known to man, we'd be looking at it and saying, look at Jalen Ramsey. Like, look at what he said positive about Dak Prescott. That means Dak's going to be great. It's when he starts to give negative opinion in it that all of a sudden the counterculture answer becomes, well, what's this guy know? Why is he allowed to say anything? And frankly, Wilbon is just dying on the sword there of not willing to take the opinion of somebody that is an all-pro corner. I mean, an all-pro corner.
Yeah, we're penalizing Jalen Ramsey for talking the way all of the rest of us do about guys. Like, we give these broad, sweeping synopsises of quarterbacks and other players around the NFL. But when a dude who's actually playing against all these people goes and decides to share his opinion because he's inside the machine and because he's actually writing checks that he's going to have to cash. Like, that's the other thing. We could all say this and it's never going to matter. Jalen's got to go play against these guys, and he still doesn't care. I don't know how you can't appreciate that.
Yeah, especially for a guy that is an all-pro corner, that did play on a great defense, that went to the AFC Championship game last year. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what people want.
And more importantly, on a defense and on a team of guys that are all used to this. They know this is exactly who he is, and they're fine with it.
Yeah, everybody. That's a great point. Everybody on that field is okay with who he is. Coming up, we need a new ruling for a judge. Plus, we've gone way too far, perhaps not far enough, with a certain punctuation mark.
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word SKILL to $79.79.79. Just pay shipping and handling. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text SKILL to $79.79.79. Text SKILL to $79.79.79.
As people who love the outdoors, we know what we stand for. We stand for fish, wildlife, and conserving places they call home. We stand for the traditions we inherited and that we must pass on. We stand for great gear, fair prices, expert service, and memorable experiences. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, we stand together for you.
Time for an oil change? Head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. We've also got you covered when it comes to oil changes, thanks to Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube. Leave worry behind.
It's always surprising to me when the old guy in the room is taught new old guy phrases by the young guy in the room. And that's what's happening this morning on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike. And, you know, I'm the vampire here. I get that. I understand that. I'm substantially older than Mike Golic Jr.
Yeah, it's weird, man.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
It's really throwing me off still.
And yet I come in this morning as we are discussing the brawl in last night's Marlins-Braves game, and I learn all of these new phrases. What hootenanny?
A hootenanny.
Uh-huh.
A Donnybrook.
Okay.
A skirmish.
Okay, skirmish I'm good with. Skirmish I feel like I've used in language. I didn't really think of it as a baseball fight term. The brouhaha was the one that I think I've really latched onto. I don't know.
Brouhaha is a good one.
Yeah, okay.
Trying to think of some other good ones. A dust up.
Oh, a dust up.
Yeah.
That does feel good and old. Like, feels like sort of like an old Western.
A brawl, a melee.
Yeah, melee. I like that. Brawl, brawl just feels like a Friday night in Nashville where too many people had too many drinks and it ends up in a brawl. Like that I'm okay with that. Melee feels a little more baseball-y.
Melee to me, there's a little more chaos in a melee. Like if you haven't broken a bottle, if someone's not randomly bleeding, it's not a melee.
A fracas. Am I saying that right, Stanzik? Fracas? Okay, we'll go with fracas.
A noisy disturbance or a quarrel.
A quarrel.
Quarrel's a good one. Quarrel, it starts when you slap somebody with a glove.
Oh, that's a quality
Free for
move.
all.
Have you ever just slapped another person? It's a great way to start a fight, especially if you got big boys behind you. It's a story for another time. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for the guys, and we want to get you caught up with some of what is trending. All of these terms for brouhahas come because of the Braves and the Marlins, who last night did not play nice. Atlanta Braves rookie Ronald Acuna Jr., he's homered in 5 straight games, the last 3 against the Marlins, and he was hit by the first pitch thrown by Miami starter Jose Urena, leading to a bench-clearing scruffle. I was just going around it. I can't get it. I've got it.
No, come on, say it again. Say it again. Come on, try.
Urena. Urena. Never mind. Just keep going, Mike.
You and Enyes don't get along.
I give up.
Yeah, no, it's tough. But for Acuna, the pitch that hit him was clocked at 97.5 miles per hour. The fastest pitch Urena has thrown to open a game, according to ESPN Stats and Info. He's also the fourth pitcher in the live ball era to get thrown out and hit the only batter that he faced in the game.
That is a spectacular day of work. You come in, you do one thing, and then you're like, I'm done.
That is, the Stugatz is strong in this guy. You get paid the same amount for that one pitch as you were going to be if you threw 90. Like, that is just the way the game goes.
That's a brilliant strategy for doing the dishes. Like, if you come in and you just do them terribly, eventually she'll come in and be like, nah, just get out of my way. And it's like, okay.
You're off dish duty at that point. This guy's going to be off Ronald Acuna hitting duty at some point, because the reaction to this has been strong to quite strong for most people, as it tends to be in these situations. We continue to mount up and see baseball's unwritten rules manifest themselves and guys getting hit in the plate, and especially when it's a young star, and especially when it's not a retaliatory shot. This is just off, you've been playing too well, we got to sit you down.
Well, Urena was not happy about being sat down. This is what he said after the game.
For me, I feel pretty bad because the thing, the people get upset and things like that, but I get upset too, because how I go away 5 days for just go out there and make one pitch and get kicked out again, that don't make sense, right? Always I throw inside.
Always. How does no one feel bad for me?
Yeah, a brilliant point, number one. Number two, baseball guy, I'm going to continue to say, you can't have it both ways. So he lost control, and if he lost control and it just was sort of an accident, is that really where we're going to go with it? And the accident should just be punished by the fact that, he now sits out the game that he got paid for anyway. Or you look at it at some point and say he was throwing specifically to that area. So, pitchers have tremendous accuracy in general. So I love it how we pick and choose when we feel like accuracy was the reason for this all to happen.
I want to print the shirts. Always I throw inside.
Oh man, that is spectacular. He won't be throwing inside anytime soon to Aaron Judge. Yankees slugger Aaron Judge needs more time to recover. We thought it would be over. We thought he would be back. That has not yet happened.
Yeah, Yankees GM Brian Cashman admitted Wednesday that the team's 3-week timeline for Judge's return from a wrist injury was overly optimistic. Now, going back to this, I thought it was going to be 3 weeks before he could even swing a bat. That
Correct.
was what we were led to believe to begin with. So I wasn't under any real guys that he was going to be ready to just jump back into things after that 3-week period. But for them to say there's no timeline is interesting. You wonder if at some point along there was a setback, if that's the case, because to look at that, that to me doesn't make sense for something that doesn't seem like an abnormal injury, but one that you just sort of have to monitor and be aware of.
I think you're absolutely right, too. The initial report was 3 weeks before he could even swing a bat. No idea then when it would take for him to get back into game shape. We do need to remember that is a portion of this. If they were slow on the 3 weeks before he could swing a bat, he's still going to have to then get his swing back. So whenever he starts swinging, there's still some time frame there of him getting back into the game. So this is a long process that is nowhere near finished. The Yankees have treaded water without him. They're 10-9 without him. They managed to stay afloat without him. But remember, when he went down with injury, one of the things we talked about was how easy this month's schedule was supposed to be. They're treading water this month. They have key series in September against the Mariners and the A's, who are both in this playoff conversation as well. So it's not going to get easier for them. They need to get Judge back.
No, good thing they already got through that Red Sox series, though, because we talked about this being the soft portion
100%.
of their schedule. It was soft until they got swept by the Red Sox.
Yeah, that is 100% accurate. Speaking of accurate, we disagree on the accuracy of this. Exclamation points are stressing people out. Years of rampant use have both diluted the punctuation mark's meaning and inflated its significance, especially in the workplace.
So an exclamation can suggest anything from actual excitement or gratitude to general friendliness to reassurance that 2 p.m. works for a meeting to I'm not mad about the other day, I swear it's fine. And now the absence of an exclamation point has actually led to some self-consciousness and some recipients responding with a little bit of anxiety here. This is the decorum that we've established in the modern world, Fitz.
This is all from the Wall Street Journal telling us that exclamation points are necessary. And look, you see this especially, there's a generational gap in texting in general. Like, you'll text somebody that, like your grandparent or whatever, you text them, and when they text you back, the punctuation isn't always there. And then suddenly you do sit there and you're like, oh my God, are they mad at me? I mean, did something happen? Like,
well, I think it goes one way or the other because, like, my dad is the most guilty of any of this. My dad overuses the hell out of punctuation. Big ellipse guy, loves the ... after almost everything, but will also unnecessarily throw like 9 exclamations in after something completely mundane. His presence in our family group chat is wild, it's unpredictable, and it's most commonly marked by haha ... nice. That's his response to almost everything.
That's part of what I love about your dad. I'm just saying, like, I'm the guy, if I text you and say, hey, can't wait for the show tomorrow, period, it's fine. If I text you, hey, can't wait for the show tomorrow with like 17 exclamation points, you get it. Like, you hear the high voice, you hear the crack, and you're like, oh, he's so happy. That transfers through.
It's got to be on brand for you, though. Like, if I got an email from, like, Louis Riddick that's laced with exclamations, I'm like, all right, like, who hacked Lewis's account? Like, that's more of a period guy to me.
You know, I feel like I will have changed the world a little bit. Like, if I could get Louis Riddick to send a text with exclamation points, or even a tweet. Louis, you want to tweet the show with a bunch of exclamation points? I feel like I will have enhanced the world a little bit.
I saw Louis in a T-shirt during the fantasy marathon. T-shirt Louis throwing out exclamation marks.
Yeah, I mean,
in all this. Honestly, though, the exclamation doesn't even do it for me like that. It's the LOL. Like a softening LOL at the end of a statement to me indicates, hey, we're all having a good time here. It's cool. The minute I don't see that, that's when I get anxious.
Oh, so you need like an LOL to tell you like everything's fine. That's very millennial.
I need that reassurance that you're not mad at me.
But I'm not mad at you, buddy. Stanzik,
I don't care about you.
Oh, wow. Stanzik, I hear you have breaking news.
Well, no, just to add on to this, we were thinking about, you know, Mike keeps saying Louis Riddick, probably not an exclamation point guy. We have Sal Pal coming in here in about 50 minutes. I just looked at my text from Sal Pal yesterday. I just wanted to make sure he knew where he was going, wanted to make sure 8 o'clock was good for him. He texted back, can't wait, 3 exclamation points.
Oh, Sal Pal. Sal Pal's on the exclamation point train.
Big emoji guy, too, Sal Pal. Big emoji guy.
I could see that, though. Big, bright smile. He's always got props when he's doing his hit. Like, he likes... Props are the emojis of real life, and so, of course, Sal Pal will be in on that. That makes perfect sense.
By the way, as you mentioned, he'll be joining us at 8 o'clock Eastern, live in studio. Also, a little bit of humble brag that now we know that he's texting buddies with emojis to Sal Pal. That's what Stanzik's life is like. It must be good. I think all of our insiders, too, like Shefty, Woj, all those guys, definitely exclamation point guys.
I want to see...
Woj is an exclamation point guy. 100%.
I think Devin texted him. I don't think he's an exclamation point guy.
Not with Devin. Nobody's an exclamation point guy with Devin. I mean,
Woj is a period guy.
Is Woj a K guy? Like, does he respond just like K?
I think he's always, hunting for a story, always moving and shaking. That sometimes the K is, and that's all you're expecting.
It depends on, to you, yes. But, like, I think, if Daryl Morley, the GM of the Rockets, texts him, I think that they've got exclamation points.
I want to see Shefty and Woj's most recent emoji list. Like, what are the ones? Because I can't imagine they're egregious, so they've really got to want to use it. What is on that listing for the most oft texting individuals of the worldwide leader?
We now know, Shefty could also tweet the show with exclamation points. It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We're presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. We'll continue to break down ESPN personalities and the use of the exclamation point, which if I text you that right now, I would text with a bunch of exclamation points on it because I'm so excited. We'll continue to break that down throughout the course of the morning. But on a much heavier note, college football obviously has had a rough summer of controversy, and the most recent and sort of mind-blowing moment here from Maryland comes with the death of a player. And I think that's as bad as it can get, obviously, when you look at a program and what they've gone through and the way Maryland has handled this over the course of the last few days. It's got a lot of praise in their coming out and saying, hey, this is our fault. We allowed this to happen. We're going to step up and take ownership for it. So Maryland has gotten much praise over the last, let's say, 72 hours in the handling of this situation. Some of that praise, though, was lessened yesterday when interim head coach Matt Canada spoke to the media. This is what Coach said.
I've talked to Coach Durkin to call him and support him in a situation that's really challenging. The focus of our players' health and safety is number one. We've got 2 tents set up, 2 cooling tents. We have water, Gatorade, snacks in the breaks, all those things. I think our practices have been extremely crisp. Our culture right now is great. Our culture right now is awesome. Our kids are excited to practice, excited to play. They're loving each other. At times, are we grieving for Jordan? We are. But our culture right now is really, really good, and our staff is working to continue to make it better.
There's a lack of awareness when you think about the flippance with which you come in and say, our culture is great. Do we think about Jordan sometimes? I mean, I just imagine in that shoes on the other foot game, in that if that was my family member that was being spoken of in that way, this is just one of those opportunities where saying you've said a few times lately, and it really hits me that sometimes the toughest thing to do is say nothing, but it's the best thing. Even in a situation where you can't say nothing, at least understanding the gravity of the situation and the words you use is something that Matt Canada definitely didn't do.
Yeah, say less. Like if you can't say nothing, say less than you would when it comes to something like this, and have a plan, because there are two versions of this to me. Either this is Matt Canada speaking without really thinking about beforehand what he was going to say, or worse, this is what he planned to say. Like, this is what he thought was a good idea to say. And now Matt Canada is in an unenviable position. He's an interim head coach taking over in a situation that no one looks at. Like, yes, technically right now, Matt Canada is the head coach of Maryland. And much like being a guy who's a backup on a football team, sometimes the starter gets injured and you go in. It's not the way anyone dreams of becoming a starter. That was how I became a starter. My best friend went down with a foot injury in a game. It's not how anyone dreams of becoming a starter, but you understand that's how the sport goes. You understand that at times things are out of your control. This is a situation, though, that is not enviable. He's coming in now being asked to manage a chaotic situation for this school with a surrounding investigation into their head coach right now. The strength and conditioning coach was just fired, and you've got a team that is clearly, in some cases, been very vocal about what they believe is poor treatment around there. And for this response to come out almost citing specific criticism just seems like a mistake. It seems like an opportunity where just less should have been said, and now you get to deal with more problems.
And it's interesting when you think about the way Maryland has handled it by having a press conference, coming in as a university and saying, you know, hey, this is our fault. Since that press conference, in the 24 hours between, you would have thought that the school would have sat down, knowing full well that the media is going to be there, and talked to Coach Canada about what the approach was going to be. And if they did sit down and talk about that, the conversation was at the very least ineffective. Because the message, I expected when he spoke such a dialed-in message of, you know, hey, we're just taking it one day at a time here, and we're trying to come together as a team and make it through a really chaotic situation. And what I'm trying to do is be the best leader of these young men today, right now, that I can be as we get through tremendous tragedy. All of these Coach Speak 101 sort of moments. I expected that because that seems like the easiest. And in this case, while an investigation is going on and while a life has been lost, sometimes that's just the best way to handle it. So to be flippant with what their culture is, to say our culture is great, it's just, it's such a misuse. And I even if that's not what he meant, you can't be caught blind in that situation.
It seems like a lack of preparation there, because he's trying to put on a strong face for the program that
Sure.
he's tasked with leading right now. He is coming in a situation where there's so much going on that to want to just come in and settle the guys down there and present a unified front, it might even be well-intentioned, but understanding everything that is lurking behind this inside, you cannot go that route. Anytime we talk to the media as players in college, walk down there and our SID, the guy that's in charge of media relations with each team, would walk there and would tell you, hey, this is exactly what Coach said before. We want to stay on message with what Coach said. We don't want to deviate from that. And that's how they deal with everybody. There's prepping you before you go into every media situation. Now, you could hear this one was out at practice. It's a little different than dealing with it post-practice when you're going to meet with the media in the meeting room, in a press conference room, wherever it is. But there should still be, especially given the surrounding situation here, the approach of we're going to make sure that we're 100% on the same page together with every message that we present from here on out.
Well, and it's not like this is some TMZ guy with a a cell phone that came up and approached coach at a bar. Like this is coming up on a practice field. So to the point that this isn't sitting in front of the media at a podium, still had to expect that this was going to happen. And so often people say, well, what do we want? Because we chastise coaches for not being open and honest. And then when they are open and honest, we chastise coaches for what they say. What I want is in each individual situation, the coach and the people around the coach and the people that surround the coach. Like you think about the fact that there are coaches on a staff whose only job is to help with clock management. I want somebody on a staff to help with, hey, this is what's going to happen and this is how this should be looked at. And let's make sure, to your point, we're on message, we're on tone. Paul Feinbaum on the Paul Feinbaum show had harsh words for the tone around Maryland yesterday.
I didn't like any part of this for this reason. Yesterday, the university put its best foot forward. They had the president who delivered an eloquent presentation, the athletic director. Today, they had another important moment, and they blew it. Instead of putting Matt Canada on a football field with a goofy hat and in coaching clothes, put him in a more sterile situation where he could deliver a solemn message. They tried so hard to convince everyone that it's great there. It's not great there. The head football coach is about to get fired. They're about to be in the middle of a massive lawsuit. They've had a terrible loss, and instead they made a spectacle out of that situation today. It was the wrong thing to do.
Strong words from Feinbaum, and he's been strong on this throughout. I will also mention, as he talks about the head football coach may be fired, we don't know who's going to be coaching this team. I mean, as much as Matt Canada today is the coach, this investigation is not going to just look at the head coach and the strength coach who's already stepped down. It's going to look at every coach that was around this process, that allowed this to happen, that allowed this culture to be created, that allowed a player to die. And when you think about how strong that is and what that statement is, it makes people uncomfortable to hear it. But that's the conversation that has to happen here. A player died. And frankly, everybody involved in that process should lose their jobs. And everybody that remains through the process should be at the very least aware of the tone of everything they say.
This is just a situation where we can sit here and parse the words of how we're fed information from this, but when the core of the issue is still the same one, when you're asking a bunch of people to behave better than they had been, that's the only real fix here, right? Which is all the things we're hearing about basically what sounds like bully tactics from a coaching staff are true. That's what you want changed. You can tell me things however you want to tell me. If what's at the core of it is still rotten, then that's the issue with all of this. The issue with all of this is you've got a bunch of players who, regardless of what we might think, have really no choice in how they are dealt with in all this. They exist in a system where they are completely on one end with what they have the power to do, and the coaches and everyone else wield every bit of everything else. So it's a difficult spot when what's at the core can unfortunately make however you window dress it always look bad.
Well, and it's an interesting spot to have the start of college football season, something you and I both love and cover so much, to have that start right around the corner. And to have so many controversies, so many things happening right now that have all of our eyes and attention that need resolution as quickly as possible. That's going to be part of what is interesting to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Coming up next, why is the NBA Rookie of the Year thinking about drastic changes to his game? And will Sam Darnold get the nod for the Jets in Week 1? Book it!
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030. To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true. But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And y'all can hang out with us, 860-506-5505, 860-506-5505. Leave us a voicemail, and if it's any good, we might play it. Jason Fitz, Mike Golic Jr. in for Trey and Mike, and this is one of my favorite things that happens on Golic and Wingo.
It
Mike.
Better be, because it's the thing I made.
Well, I love it because, I'm able to say anything I want right now, and then I don't have to pay any sort of recourse for it. 6 months later, you guys don't bring it back. So I can really do whatever I want here, and there's no punishment.
That's the idea. We want to encourage the art of hot takery here. And so we brought this segment called Book It, where, again, if you just take your normal run-of-the-mill phrase or opinion and throw Book It on the end, honestly, all of Jalen Ramsey's quarterback criticisms would have been a lot better if he had just added Book It on the end of them. Then it would have been true hot take. So that's what we do here. Devin reads us some statements, and we decide if we're going to book him or not.
All right, let's do it. Let's book it.
Put it in the books. Speaking of Jalen Ramsey, was he accurate in all of his quarterback assessments? Book it.
Accurate in all of them. I would say no, just because of, and it was the one I pointed out. I'm not going to book it. Rival. Not going to book it just because the Andrew Luck cause in here. A lot of people have been pulling the receipts on Twitter of Andrew Luck's head-to-head matchup with Jalen Ramsey. Only met once, but Andrew Luck absolutely went off. I think he had 125 passer rating or QB rating against Jalen Ramsey, who he said was basically made by the relationship between him and T.Y. Hilton on that team. So can't book it.
Yeah, I'm with you, and for the same exact reason, because Andrew Luck is going to be healthy this year, and that's what's going to make the AFC South, in my opinion, the most interesting division in the NFL this year. I said it. That's right, because the Jags are going to be great. The Titans are going to be good. The Texans are going to be very good with Deshaun Watson. And Andrew Luck managed to take piles of trash to the playoffs in his previous incarnations. So better offensive line, to your point. I think that the Jalen Ramsey is going to have his hands full with Luck.
More importantly, I'm excited because Jalen Ramsey gets to go out and face all the people that he talked bleep about.
But he did say good stuff about Carr, so he's mostly right.
All right. We're 0 for 1 here. Let's try again. Sam Darnold will start week 1 for the Jets. Book it?
Oh, book it. I've been saying this one for weeks.
You can book it.
Highest drafted quarterback in Jets history at number 3 overall. The Jets haven't drafted a 4,000-yard passer since Joe Namath in 1967, who was the first 4,000-yard passer in league history. I think it's set up perfectly for him right now. We heard a lot about Teddy Bridgewater's great camp early on, and all of that talk has been replaced by a kid who was impressed behind closed doors, on the practice field, and in his first preseason game. I think they're just going to let him out there and just have him go spin it.
100%. I agree. I'm going to book it.
You can book it.
I think this is one of those unfortunate times, too, because the Jets wanted some great scenario in my mind where they could build Bridgewater up and create trade value by having him play great in the offseason, by having him play well in the preseason. The problem is, I don't think there are a lot of teams sitting around in the quarterback market today. Most of the teams that we looked at with quarterback deficiency addressed it in the draft. So the Jets are just going to be sitting there waiting for Teddy Bridgewater to get some sort of a great offer so they can ship him out. I don't think it happens. I think he ends up sitting the bench and Darnold ends up the starter.
The Braves will retaliate and hit a member of the Marlins when they play next Thursday in Miami. Book it.
All right, so we had Ronald Acuna get tagged the very first at bat last night. He was on that hot streak, leadoff homers for days, and all of a sudden, the Marlins decided they weren't having it. I feel like they have to, right? The reaction was just so strong. You heard Freddie Freeman and a bunch of guys after the game really with some pointed comments calling it gutless, classless. I just think when you have that kind of reaction, you saw the benches clear, nothing really came of it, but this is baseball, and I feel like regardless of how fair or right it is, they're going to retaliate. I'm going to book it.
You can book it.
I'm used to you being wrong, but on this one, you're particularly wrong, Mike Golic Jr. They will not retaliate. I will not book this. You know why? They get to retaliate for this once. All right, they get one shot at retaliation, and the fact is the guy they want to retaliate towards is not going to be in the game, right? They can't actually hit the guy they want to hit. They're going to wait, and I'm telling you, it could be like a year from now, and then bam, they're going to do it then. And they're not doing it until they can actually go at Urena. Until they can go to Urena.
I feel like that's peak baseball, though, like the collateral damage that comes along with it. Like, well, it wasn't him, but wearing the same colors, close enough. Like, this is as Bloods and Crips as it gets. I mean, seriously, that's the way these guys
revenge is a dish best served cold, my friend. They're going to wait.
Major League Baseball's rules do not make sense. They do not. The unwritten rules, we can't treat them like it makes any semblance of logical sense. They're going to go out there. They're going to rip one off. They're going to make sure that whoever's in is someone they're comfortable getting thrown out, because I guarantee you that's going to be a situation where the umps are all going to be ready. They're going to be sitting around saying, nope, we got to just keep control of this from the start, but it's going to have to happen.
What if it was like before even the first pitch, like an NHL game when there's a lot of anger in a playoff series, and they just drop the gloves before the puck drops? I'd be all in for that. Just everybody plows the field, and then they just go for it. Total kerfuffle.
There you go.
Melee.
I appreciate your effort.
The Mariners, owner of the longest playoff drought in the 4 major professional sports, will make the playoffs. Book it?
Book it.
You can book it.
Yeah. Book it. And this comes down to one important thing, ladies and gentlemen, my beloved Oakland Raiders. See, because what this really comes down to is that if the Oakland A's make the playoffs, then the Raiders have to play in dirt longer, and I don't want that. I don't want that at all. So I need the Oakland A's to somehow find their way out of it, and the only way that I can see that happening is the Mariners. So I'm going to let my heart of hope take over, and we're going to let the Mariners. Plus, Mina Kimes would be so happy, our friend, dear friend Mina Kimes. I'd be so happy, so I'm happy for her, and I'm happy the Raiders don't have to kick off the dirt any longer. Therefore, the Mariners have to make it, and the A's cannot.
Yeah, I really hope she's not listening right now, because I can't book this. I want to. They're 2.5 games back right now, but I just keep looking, and this has been the story for them all year. This has been a team whose record has been much better than it should be, considering they've got a well into the negatives run differential right now. Negative 22 on the year. You look at the two teams in front of them, the A's plus 65, the Yankees plus 135 on the year. I just don't think that's sustainable down the stretch here. They've got a lot of games in that division out there left. I can't book this.
Ben Simmons will shoot a better percentage from the field with his right hand. Book it.
I mean, this is really spectacular to me.
You know what? I'm gonna say book it.
You can book it.
Right? Like, how much worse can he do? This is the biggest hole in Ben Simmons' game from last year. 78% of his shots last season came within 10 feet of the basket. He attempted only 12 catch-and-shoot field goals and made 2 of them. So I just love the visual of him sitting around looking at his left hand and then looking over, he goes, wait, I have another.
The thought that you made it this far, Rookie of the Year, like that's the Rookie of the Year. Just
impressive.
All right, I'm just going to shoot the. I mean, it's one thing for you to come in and be like, look, I've seen the game. I've seen your game. It's time to change hands. Like, that's fine. That's fine. I would accept that. But when you're talking about a Rookie of the Year, he shot about 54.5% from the field last year. I'm not going to book that his numbers go better, though. Not going to do it. Tristan Thompson switched from left-handed to right-handed, entering his 3rd NBA season. The shooting percentage actually went down. It went down for a year. Then it started to move up. So maybe eventually it moves up. But for 1 year, I think it goes down.
Lastly, Rockets GM Daryl Morey is right that LeBron is the best player, and it's not even close. Book it.
Put it in the books! All right, so for the 10th time in his career, LeBron finished top 3 in MVP voting, ties Jordan for most in NBA history. LeBron, during his run of 8 straight finals, 7 of 7, 55-win teams. He eliminated 7 of 7 55 teams in the East outside of his own, eliminated 57% of East players to play in the postseason, not including himself and his teammates, and was responsible for 9 of 11 series sweeps in the East in that span. Book it. Why not?
You can book it.
I mean, my God, if we're going to keep having iterations of the LeBron Jordan debate, at least a smart guy like Daryl Morey is giving me the ammunition I need to go out here and speak, which should be a fact at this point.
This is what he said on the Dan Patrick Show.
You just look at his ability to, generate wins and championship probability over time, and you basically break that down. And obviously, you don't need all the numbers. You can watch as well and see that, but if you basically isolate that and also look at the career he's had, frankly, I think it's at this point it's become a bit of a big margin actually where he's come out ahead. I know that's a little controversial.
Book it. I'm with him. Book it.
You can book it.
I love how flippant Daryl Morey is. The best part, too, is people are like, well, stats will lie to you. These nerds are ruining basketball. And he casually slips in there. You can watch him, too. I mean, it's kind of obvious there.
I also love the fact that it's such an open admission that, you've got the GM of the Rockets, and we heard last year the Rockets so much talking about the Warriors, and there was this mindset of the Warriors were like, oh, we don't have the Rockets in our mouth. We're not worried about that. The opposite wasn't true. The Rockets admitted sort of an obsession from the beginning. Now you have them talking about the Lakers, essentially. So it is interesting to have a franchise be so honest about what they think the strengths are of other teams in their own conference and what they're trying to compete against. For him to come in and really just openly admit that about someone not on his roster, I think is significant. Also, by the way, he's right. Best player of all time. Book it.
He's buttering them up. This is the classic. This is the move that LeBron does all the time, where he'll butter up players he's not actually worried about. And the Houston Rockets aren't worried about the Lakers coming and stealing their shine right now.
Not right now. Let's give it time, Mike. Just give it time.
Seen a lot more people, though, in on my Lakers third seed in the Western Conference take lately, though. A lot of people starting to buy in on that one.
Yeah, well, that's, no. Curiosity killed the cat. Coming up, two sides in a stalemate aren't talking to each other, but one side is talking about the other.
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And it's easier than ever with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word JOLT to 797979. Finally, a formula that boosts total testosterone. If your results with Ageless Male Max are too intense, please decrease use. For your free bottle, text JOLT to 797979. Text JOLT to 797979.
As soon as this weather breaks,
Flip-flop Fridays, baby.
Are you kidding me? Thong Thursday?
Okay, no.
I mean, absolutely.
No.
Wear the thong.
People are eating.
Oil up.
Freaky Friday, am I right? SportsCenter brought to you by Discover. Become a new card member and Discover Card will match all the cash back you've earned dollar for dollar at the end of your first year. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Mike Golic Jr., Jason Fitz in for Trey and Mike. And one of the lost stories here in the grand scheme of training camp, because we finally get to see preseason football, and it's easy to forget that we still have a couple of holdouts because, again, we haven't seen that in a long time in the NFL to this level, and we're not sure when a couple of these are going to end. And as much conversation as there's been about Aaron Donald, the fact is you and I have talked before in the past, Mike, about Aaron Donald is in probably an easy situation to come in and immediately beat Aaron Donald. Much like last year, Joey Bosa misses a lot of time, but he was able to come in and quickly make an impact because of the system they ran, because the player he wasn't, because of what they were able to how they were able to utilize him. It is a curious piece to look at the Raiders situation, particularly with Khalil Mack, and figure out how this thing resolves. Because ultimately, there hasn't been a lot of Khalil Mack's been very quiet in this process. We haven't heard much from Khalil Mack. It's very Kawhi Leonard-esque in that sense that you don't hear a lot from Khalil in these instances. So we're not really sure what he's asking for, and we're not really sure where the Raiders are in this conversation. We just know that they're far apart, and there doesn't seem to be a quick resolution.
For the negotiation process, that's the best possible outcome, right? We see when these things turn public and start to try and pit the public against the player or try and make one side look greedy. If you're the organization, this is the right way to handle it. It just creates a lot more confusion and uncertainty on our part on the outside when we don't know who to assign blame to, because that's what we look to in these situations is who's being unreasonable, when in reality, more often than not, and I think especially in the case of Donald and Mack, this is just the cost of doing business at this sort of game-breaking level. These are contracts that are going to change the way that these kinds of positions are paid that are atypical for this, and it comes with the territory.
Well, and there's a fine line. The Raiders are working in a new defensive coordinator on Paul Gunther. Obviously, there's a new scheme that he's going to have to play into, but there is at least a mindset at some point that there's a lot that has to change with the Raiders, because as talented as Derek Carr and Khalil Mack appear to be, and Amari Cooper, all of these players appear to be, it's still a team that the wheels fell off completely last year, and they weren't any good. So it's not just having the right players in. It obviously takes the right players in the right scheme. John Gruden would like to think that they can do that with the Raiders, and that's why they paid him $100 million. He spoke yesterday after practice about the Khalil Mack situation.
I don't think it's been a distraction. It's obviously been, for me, it's been disappointing. Obviously, you want to have your best player here. This guy's a really great guy, too. So it's disappointing we don't have him here. We're going to try to get him here as soon as we can. But in a time being, you got to move on. You got to get up. You got to go to work. And that's one thing I'm very proud of what we've done here.
So let me ask you, Mike, when you were in training camp in the past, is a holdout a big deal to the other guys in the locker room?
It's a big deal in the sense that you know that usually it involves one of your best players and you want them on the field, but money matters are always something that guys generally pull back from, because everyone understands you're working to better you and your family's personal situation. So you're hardly ever going to get, and that's why it's always so jarring when it happens, guys criticizing anyone else for trying to maximize their earning potential in this limited window. Everyone's usually pretty understanding of that.
It's an interesting piece for Oakland, particularly because Khalil Mack is, let's face it, he was an all-pro at 2 positions in 1 year. So there's a lot they can do with him. What I can't figure out is missing training camp really going to be a big deal to that type of player? I mean, can you just plug him in anywhere and he'll just come in and be absolutely fine? There's a big difference between, missing checks and missing game checks and where this thing goes over the course of the season. It feels like in a franchise tag world, there has to be some sort of resolution. And this is just one of those moments where, unfortunately for the player, the team holds 90% of the leverage. So then the question becomes, what's the consequence of the action of the holdout? If there isn't a new deal, what's the consequence of action on the field?
The consequence is going to be, unfortunately, I think, minimal for this defense, because it's still a unit that's based on the strength of really one guy with a couple of others that might be able to affect change. Now, obviously, if they get, Mo Hurst to be a guy that they get late round value out of, and some other guys, I saw Conley's back on the field now after some injury scare, but I don't think it's going to be a great unit again. So to be able to discern how much this affects him, listen, missing reps in camp, missing that chance to tune up and get ready for the season, it's absolutely going to have an effect. I mean, you go out there and you need those reps. Everyone needs a different amount to feel ready. He's already played a fair amount of football, but it's just what level you need to feel like you're prepared.
Do you need, from your experience, do you need much time to get a new system in, or is it as simple as the coaches figure out a better way to utilize you?
New system, it depends on the language, how close it is to what you spoke before, because structurally lining up is one thing, but it's learning, how do I fit, what do the calls look like, how do I communicate the information I need with the rest of my teammates and coaches? When that changes, that's usually the most difficult part.
It's going to be an interesting piece to see how the Raiders can sort of figure out the financial side of paying Mack right now, paying Mack long term, also paying whatever his guaranteed bonuses will be. That's not always easy for that team to do. So it's going to be an interesting piece to keep an eye on, and I'm not sure there's a quick resolution. It could go all the way to the regular season. Coming up, your pal, our pal, Sal Pal in studio. Next, Golic and Wingo.
By the book.
Message and data rates may apply.
When did it become okay for men to be lazier, softer, fatter? We need to bring the men of this country back to greatness with Ageless Male Max, a patent-pending formula with an ingredient that helps boost your total testosterone, promoting greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction of body fat percentage than exercise alone. Plus, an amazing 64% increase in nitric oxide, which can be handy in the gym and in the bedroom. Take your manhood to the max by trying your first 30-day bottle free. Not 10 days, not 15 days, but a full 30-day supply free when you text the word SKILL to $79.79.79. Just pay shipping and handling.